Here with Reaction White House correspondent Peter Doocy. What she didn't mention there is that the administration not only shut down Keystone, but auctions for drilling exploration in states, shut down Alaska drilling, other domestic drilling, and put all sorts of regulations and a hold on any new production. So she wasn't being honest with you, Peter.
Well, that's the complaint, but the White House keeps telling us there are 9,000 unused oil leases on public lands. Go ask oil and gas producers why they are not tapping into them. And when our colleagues have reached out to these oil and gas executives, that's exactly what they say. The reason that they're not going into the ground right now is because the regulations are too burdensome, and those are regulations that Joe Biden put into place during his first week in office. But this White House is very sensitive to the fact that prices are going up, and they do say that they are going to try to protect consumers from higher gas prices. But there's a new study out tonight from Yardini Research that says it's going to cost the average family this year $2,000 more in gas and $1,000 more in groceries because of inflated prices. And something that I reminded or asked the press secretary about today, gas prices were steadily rising even before Russia invaded Ukraine. And that is a reality that the economy, with all of this aside, was struggling and prices were rising. And what lies ahead and how high it might go, how high gas prices might go, they won't say.
Can we get an explanation? Are they acknowledging what's been reported in many places? Pete Buttigieg acknowledging that as part of the Iranian nuclear deal that would unlock tens of billions of dollars that are held under sanctions, that would allow the Iranians to go forward with their nuclear program. That doesn't include any place, anytime inspections, but would include the U.S. importing oil from Iran. What about this delegation with Venezuela? Have they given you any answers on those questions? Why would we beg OPEC? Because they've rejected us now numerous times. Why would we beg Iran? Why would we beg Venezuela? Have they given you an answer on that?
Some limited answers. The big picture here is that they just see a fossil fuel-free country. It's something that Biden promised to do. It's something really important to progressives in the Democratic Party, and that's what they're going to try to do. They did confirm to us today that Biden officials are talking to counterparts in Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and Iran. And while we don't know the details about the Iran nuclear deal and where they're at with that, we do know that the United States and Russia are sitting on the same side of the negotiating table. The Iranians won't talk to the U.S., but directly. So the Russians are the go-between. And when I ask Jen Psaki about this, she keeps saying that she thinks, or they have assessed, it is more important to try to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. So that's why we are teamed up with the Russians in Switzerland while we're condemning them everywhere else.
Peter, I want to be clear. I want our audience to understand this. They want a fossil fuel-free America, okay, but they're willing to sit down with some of the most hostile actors and radical mullahs in Iran and dictators in Venezuela and countries in the Middle East, OPEC countries, many that don't like us, and Russia, who just invaded a sovereign country. It's okay to import oil from them. How does that make us any less fossil fuel dependent or fossil fuel free, as you say?
That's a great question, and we are still trying to get to the bottom of that. But we've noticed a big change here at the White House just since the end of last week. They had been saying that cutting off the Russian oil imports would just be too disruptive to the global market. They're not saying that anymore. And so it seems like as Putin keeps going, Biden might be getting closer to doing that. And again, they've already warned that the prices are going to go way up. But now there are Democrats joining Republicans on the Hill saying this has got to be the next thing. We're not sending troops. At least do this. So stay tuned for that.
All right, Peter Doocy, great job as always. You're like the only one in that room that asks smart questions. We appreciate it. Anyway, here with Reaction, former Energy Secretary, Texas Governor Rick Perry. Governor, I asked you last time, I said, if we include oil, include gas, include coal, you said well over 100 years worth of supply. With new technology, for example, microwaving shale oil, is it possibly even much longer than that?
Potentially, and when you add small modular reactors in there, it's for longer than anyone has a look into the future. Sean, we knew this was coming as soon as we saw the Biden administration start putting a stop to our fossil fuel production in the United States. We knew that the Russians were going to use energy as a weapon. We talked about it ad nauseum over in Europe when we were delivering American liquefied natural gas. We were basically calling it freedom gas, and it's exactly what it was. We're seeing the reality of reckless disregard of reality. And that's what this administration is doing. Reckless disregard for reality. The reality was when you gave the Russians the weapon of energy, they were going to use it. And let me tell you, I'll give you a great example. Alex Novak was the former Minister of Energy. I met with him while I was his counterpart at the Department of Energy as the Secretary of Energy. And he has now become the Deputy Prime Minister. And he literally said yesterday, I believe, that if sanctions were put into place, that they would cut off the gas into the European Union. Exactly what we told the members of the European Union that they would do if they finished that Nord Stream 2 pipeline. President Trump stood up, had the gumption and the vision to say, we're not going to do that. We're going to stop that. We're going to sanction these folks if it goes forward. And it stopped. And it gave Europe a real taste of independence from Russian pressure, and now they're back in the sights of Putin, and he's squeezing the trigger.
Let me ask you, Governor, Mr. Secretary, let me ask you this. You just heard Peter Doocy say that the left they want a fossil fuel-free America, so they're willing to they're forcing America to negotiate with some of the most hostile regimes in the world. We're literally now in the middle of a war importing all this energy from Russia. We're now apparently negotiating even with the mullahs of Iran that chant often death to Israel, death to America. Now we're going to go to the dictatorship of Venezuela. They've already been rejected by OPEC over and over again to increase production. We're going to allow Americans to suffer a 40-year high of inflation and have a weaker national security because of our dependence on foreign energy. Can you tell me how any of that makes any sense in any way to you?
Negotiating with madmen is not a good look. And that's exactly what we're doing. This administration does not, either they have, again, this is a reckless disregard for reality. The reality is Maduro, Anatolia, the Iranians, they're not going to negotiate in good faith with us. The Russians are going to do everything they can to put us into the greatest pickle that they can put us in. And China is sitting on the sidelines, or somewhat on the sidelines, watching this and deciding whether or not they're going to attack Taiwan. I mean, we're getting into a real mess here, Sean, and this administration doesn't seem to be doing anything in the reality side of it, because reality is this. Stand up, Mr. President, and admit you were wrong. Push back on your woke left climate crazies and say, you know what, folks, your plan just wasn't going to work. And American energy producers, we're going to remove the regulations that are stifling you. And don't be confused about standing up and Psaki saying we got 9,000 permits, like that matters. Those oil and gas individuals, when they know that they can make a profit, they will be out there drilling. But they know they can't today because the American government, the federal government, is their enemy. And until the message is sent, listen, we were wrong. Please come back and start drilling for the oil and gas that we've got in this country and bring America and the rest of the world that's on our side back to energy independence. And we can do that. We just need the signal from the federal government that we're not just going to strangle you.
I can't believe the times we're living in. Secretary Rick Perry, boy, we really could use you back as Energy Secretary. Thank you for being with us. And we could use